Welcome back to OpenLine. We are talking about the opioid epidemic in Tennessee. It is a serious one, it is a deadly one, and it's affecting thousands of families every day. Maybe your next door neighbor. That's how serious it is. It is really touching so many families. We have lots of calls to get to, and first I'm going to go to Taylor on the line. Taylor, thank you for calling in.
Well, thank you, folks, for the program.
You're welcome. What's your comment or question?
I've never taken opioids and don't have any magic answers to share with you in the audience, but I will share a story that I watched on 60 Minutes about many of these clinics. It primarily was focusing on Palm Beach, or West Palm Beach County, Florida, where it was 44 clinics had opened up in just the last year or so. People were sending their young people in their lives down there to these clinics. They had homes they had rented, the clinics did, and they would put 5, 6, 7 patients in one home. And the gist of the story was they were getting suicides, overdoses from so many of these homes and so many deaths in that county. It was just staggering. And the problem was these insurance companies were paying for all that, including meals, the room, and everything else. Yet the patients were not being helped actually at all. They were in a worse situation or as bad as they had come from. And these costs were like $600,000, $700,000 per patient. And with costs like that, unless these insurance companies and the regulatory authorities can find the proper treatment and places, it will break every state in this nation that's trying to pay the cost on this, and that is...
Taylor, you bring up a great point, and I appreciate you sharing that story for 60 minutes with us.
That's all I have to say about it.
Well, thank you.
It's a serious cost as well as in dollars as well as lives.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. The fact that we got to keep this in perspective. It is lives that we're talking about, people's lives. This task force here in Tennessee, made up of lawmakers, you're on it, hoping to make recommendations to the governor here pretty soon. Are you really looking at treatment, or you kind of is that not the focus right now?
I'm focused on treatment, and so I'm trying to make sure. I had a meeting today with some people that are looking at making recommendations, and really just saying, you know, at the end of the day, it's really about helping mental health in the state of Tennessee and about treatment. And we have to do a better job of that. Otherwise, we're never going to be successful treating this problem. We're just going to continue on, because at the next day, you're going to hear 2 years from now it's a heroin addiction or methamphetamines. 10 years ago, I remember I was working for Congressman Van Hillary. You could see it move from California across the state. And what happened is when you had meth coming into the state, people where it wasn't yet, they're like, oh, it's not here yet, we're not worried about it. Well, everybody has to be worried about it, because when you look at the impact on families, local governments, state governments, the individuals, we can't sit back and just let it continue to go on. No,
because by the time we're reporting on it on the news and people are dying, that's too late. When we said, oh, it's here now. It's here. Yeah, it is, and people are dying. And the thing with the opioids, you know, we have the opioid epidemic. Now doctors are not able to prescribe as many, or they're being more cautious or being regulated more. So now it's moved to heroin, and then it's moved to fentanyl, which is even more dangerous than heroin. So it's this evolving epidemic, really. I mean, it's not just opioids.
No, that's right. And what you see then, too, then you see the Mexican cartels. Because what you saw with methamphetamines, with meth, is they saw a profit, and it went from being made, one of the reasons you don't see mobile units anymore in the state of Tennessee, or these mobile kits to make meth, is because the cartels took it over, and they made a meth that's a higher quality than what you can make here, and it put them out of business. Well, now you see them bringing in fentanyl all over the place. And when you look at the overdose, usually it's a combination drug. So they might be on an opioid, but then they've used heroin or fentanyl, and it gets to a point, or they think they're buying an opioid and they get fentanyl, kind of like what happened to Prince. He thought he was getting something that was 10 times stronger than what he was, and you have an overdose. So part of it too is the supply of the drug will never change. No. Never change. We have to treat the patient, and as they said earlier, treat them like an individual and help them get better health. And you have to treat the whole body. You can't just treat the addiction, because what we've learned with mental health is before they get treated, before they'll get treated with their mental health, they want to be treated for their diabetes or whatever first.
Sure.
So you have to treat the person as a whole to be successful. You can't just isolate it.
Yeah, you need practitioners who are going to look at that whole body and say, okay, let's
how do we make you better?
Exactly.
Right.
Let's jump back to the phone lines. I promised you we would. David's on the line and been holding with us. David, thank you for being there tonight. What's your comment or question?
Well, I'm a little confused about this. I came in on about 10 minutes into the show, and
okay.
I found out he's a representative, and that's great. He makes laws, and that's what we want him to do. The thing about it is you got to treat the people that's doing it. I understand that. You got to cut off the supply, which I think President Trump might be trying to do with the wall and trying to get more border agents or whatever it is. There is a supply. The supply has to be cut. If you cut that, I think you could deal with the addiction a whole lot better. Yeah, I mean, the pharmaceutical industry, it's a monster just on its own. These people are billions and billions of dollars, and it's so easy to get this stuff. Doctors, you go in with a back problem, okay, we'll just give you some, some back medication, some pain medication, whatever it is. Whether it's pain medication, whether it's your meth or morphine, or not meth, but morphine, stuff like that. I mean, there's got to be legislation to put it in there to make it harder.
Sure, before it can get in someone's hands. Well, let's talk to Representative Sexton. What are you guys looking at on that part of it?
Well, I mean, what we've done is we started prosecuting physicians. The issue with the state of Tennessee is to make a case against, say, a physician who is overprescribing or has someone who's overdosed numerous times and had deaths reported. The amount of time to make a case on that patient, on that physician, you have to go through and look at all the charts. And what the department will tell you is it takes a year to year and a half just to be able to make one case on one physician, because you have to look at the entirety of all the charts. Which
in the meantime, they're still practicing.
And they're still practicing,
prescribing.
or you can try to take away their license. So, I mean, you can hold physicians accountable. That's part of it. Part of it too is insurance companies are filling it. And when you talk to pharmacies, a lot of times they feel threatened. We've had legislation to where you had pharmacists who've been shot because they wouldn't fill it.
Yes.
And so it becomes a true problem, and there is no easy solution. You can hope that you can cut off the supply, but a lot of this supply is people from medicine cabinets. You talk to Dr. Lloyd with the Department of Mental Health. People will look in their family's medicine cabinet. So a lot of times we're supplying it for our own people to start, and then there's not enough and they go somewhere else. So we have to do better drug take-back programs to get the medications out of the house, not to hold them around. Part of it too is maybe have a better understanding where you don't fill 50 tablets at one time. Maybe the physician writes a less amount for a surgery than a full amount. But there's things to be done. A lot of it is the federal government having to step in and do some stuff, but a lot of it is our families and facilities that are supplying it, because people are stealing it from under our noses, because we hoard medicine sometimes and we might need it again.
I might need it later.
And that creates another problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Angie's on the line. We're getting lots of calls, so I want to try to get to all of these. Angie, thank you for calling in.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. What's your comment or question?
Well, my comment is I am a chronic pain. I'm a patient. I've had so many surgeries, and just in the past 10 years alone, it's unreal. And the surgeries were just because we tried everything else first. It wasn't we just went straight to surgery. And, there's such a stigma when it comes to the opioids and people who are ODing. Most of these people who are ODing are people who don't even have a prescription for it. They buy it off the street, and then they use it with other kinds of, drugs and alcohol and things of that nature. And then, that's when the overdose comes. So it's like, you got to put people in a category to where you can say, okay, this person is taking the medication correctly. They're doing it the way they're supposed to, and you don't see ODs when you have people like that. What the ODs that you see are people who are taking it not the way they're supposed to, prescribe to them, or it's not even prescribed to them at all, and they get it from the street just to get high. So, and then, of course, the people who actually need it, we're the ones that are the hardest to come by to get it. But they're so easy, a doctor is so easy to write a prescription for somebody else, without, doing physical therapy or whatever. There's all different kinds of things, like you say, chiropractor, this and that. And I've been through all of those things. It's not like, automatically I would just put on opioids and there you go. But after a while, the over-the-counters didn't work, and then the lesser ones didn't work, and then after surgery, it comes to a point where it's just a chronic pain.
Sure.
And I'm in pain every day. It's just the level of pain is different. So, you have to look and say, well, this person who OD'd, was this medication prescribed to them? Were they taking it the way they were supposed to? How many pills are left in the bottle? Things of that nature is what really it should boil down to, because it's just, like I said, most of the people who are ODing don't even have a prescription for it. They're just buying it off the street.
And Angie, thank you for calling in. And she brings up a different angle of this, a different viewpoint, and it's one you expressed too. It is a delicate dance because you have people who need these drugs.
Right.
They need them. They're not using them recklessly, they just need them. And that's what you all have to be mindful of.
It is, and she's exactly right. 44% of the people who overdosed in the state of Tennessee did not have a prescription in the controlled substance database 60 days prior to the overdose.
Wow.
So what that tells you is they're getting them from somewhere else other than a physician. They're buying them off people because the price of 1 milligram equivalent of OxyContin is very high. It's higher than cocaine and other stuff.
My goodness.
And so it becomes a profit out there, so you have people trying to sell it and make money off of it. But when you look at all the numbers, it is an issue to where there's a high street value, and over time the street value will lend itself and it'll get too high in economics, they'll move on to heroin, which is what you're seeing, or something cheaper. But she's exactly right. there's people out there who need pain medications and to be managed correctly. And it's a delicate balance not to infringe upon their right and their right for health care from their physician, and not harm them because we're trying to tighten the screws too much on those who are out there getting them off the street or a bad physician.
Okay, we're going to keep this conversation going. We have to take a quick break, but we have so many people on the line, Brian and John and Sharday and Benny and Jeff and Mike. We're going to get to you right after this. Stay where you are.